Hello, listeners, and welcome to Anyone Can Move. This is your host, Caroline Gerhart, and I'm joined again today by my co host, Madison Vaya.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here.
So, we are so excited to share with y'all today the episode that we've done with Dean Endalyn Taylor of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. She was just recently named the Dean, and we just got to talk about so many incredible things, and I'm so excited for everybody to listen to it. And Madison has a personal connection to this guest today because Madison graduated from the University of North Carolina. Can you tell us a little bit about your time there?
Oh, yeah. I graduated in 2020, and that was in the midst of all the pandemic crazies. But my understanding of technique and the choreographic process has never been more at its peak because of my training at School of the Arts. And their understanding of collaboration is continuing to grow in empathy. And I'm super excited to see where Dean Endalyn Taylor can bring the program and continue the changes that it's already been implementing before she was there. And it's a wonderful school and a wonderful program, and that's my little plug for it.
Yes, of course. Well, without further ado, our conversation with Dean Endalyn Taylor. Hello, listeners, and welcome to Anyone Can Move. I'm so excited to welcome our special guest today, Dean Endalyn Taylor. Hello, Dean Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. I'd love it before we get started if you could just give our listeners a little bit of background on you, your life, and your dance career.
Certainly. I am a native of Chicago, Illinois, and that is where I started dancing at the tender age of 7. I am a South Side girl, which was a predominantly African American neighborhood. Um, there was a small ballet school called Mayfair Academy of Fine Arts that was my first place of training in codified disciplines. And I studied ballet, tap, and gymnastics all in a 45-minute time span. So it was like a survey of these art forms. And ballet was the one that really stuck with me and resonated with me. And so upon having the opportunity to audition for the annual Nutcracker that took place there, I did so and was introduced to Larry Long and the Ruth Page School of Dance, which is where my formal training really began. And from there, many opportunities to participate in summer intensives, Joffrey Ballet, Pennsylvania Ballet, and ultimately Dance Theater of Harlem is what led me to getting into the Dance Theater of Harlem at the age of 16 and kind of spending and expanding my love of the arts and my career in dance. And since that time, I became a principal with that company, fell in love, had a family at that company. So Dance Theater of Harlem is very much a family to me. And also then transitioned into Broadway and performed in 3 very successful Broadway shows. Carousel was the first one, Lion King and Aida, before going back to school to get my master's in dance, becoming the director of the Dance Theater of Harlem School, co-director of its education and outreach program called Dancing Through Barriers, and then ultimately getting a position at the University of Illinois, where I was there for 7 years. And in my last year there, I served as the Dean's Fellow for Black Arts Research. And all of these things I feel very much led me to this moment where I'm currently the Dean of Dance at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts.
That is so incredible. That's such an incredible career that you've had and so many incredible opportunities that you've been able to experience. I'd love to hear a little bit about, you mentioned that you were on Broadway and then you went and got your master's degree. What led you to make that decision to take a break from performing for a little bit and go and get another degree?
Well, I think that it was always in the back of my mind to go back to school and get a degree. My former boss, Arthur Mitchell, was very much, he's known as an artist. He's known as an incredible motivator. He was a critical thinker, and he was a huge, huge, huge advocate for education. And during my time at Dance Theater, probably my very first year, I was a senior. And at that time, I was touring with the company, but completing school through a correspondence program. And that was something that he felt was essential. So Dance Theater of Harlem paid for me to be able to do that. So I think that mentoring and that level of understanding that your education is something that continues throughout your entire life really stuck with me. And so when the time came where my son was at a certain age, I have two children, by the way, but my oldest son was at a certain age, I wanted to really start to set roots and be able to continue to be a part of this field that I love so much, but in a different way. And I saw a degree in dance as that opportunity.
That makes perfect sense.
And you've taken a lot of leadership roles throughout your career. Did you see yourself as a leader, like starting off when you were in your teenage years, or did you just kind of evolve into a leader?
You know, that's such a great question. And I really don't think I ever set out to be a leader. I don't ever recall going, oh, I've got leadership skills and abilities. But I think what happens over time is that you realize that the best leaders are the ones who have collaboration, have a sense of respect for what others bring to the table and the room, and have the ability to really listen and then synthesize and add their own beliefs, skills, knowledge to a project, an organization. And so I think I naturally fell into that category, because I very much value and appreciate what other people have to say, their perspectives, which I think is a huge part of why equity and diversity and inclusion matter and mean so much to me.
Right, and that is something that I'd actually like to ask you about, those things that you're so passionate about, which is so incredible. I'd love to hear a little bit about your goals in your first year as Dean of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, and how you plan to diversify the program itself.
Yes, well, my first year in many ways is what I call giving myself grace, my grace period to take in and absorb what is currently happening, to really deeply understand the history of this institution. It is an incredible institution that has over 53 years of merit and worth and value and proof and things for me from which I can learn. So I am not one to rush to implementing and inserting my ideas. I have plenty of them, and I believe that there's a time to do that, but I also believe that there is a time to kind of take in and understand what it is you are coming into and how best you can then help to move the organization forward. Having said that, there are things that started happening, were conversations in terms of being inclusive, things that may seem like little things, but are really huge to those people that it directly affects, like dress code. There are now brown tights and flesh tone tights that are a part of the uniform and the dress code. We are also really working on non-binary dress codes as well, so that people can see themselves and feel like they can be exactly who they are without having to fit into one category or the other. I think curriculum has to be a huge part of diversity and inclusion because it needs to be deeply embedded, and that is the way that it becomes normative. I think that history, all history, needs to find its way into programs and arts programs. I think the history of the world and how the arts are situated within the world matters, and those things need to be conveyed and understood by the students. You know, the saying that whose shoulders we stand on, why we're able to even be here today having the conversation that we're having is because of a history of people who they are the foundations. It's the walls are just the walls. It's the people who fought for things, who stood up for things, who allow us to be able to do those same things today and innovate and move forward. Also, choreography is also an area that I have, you know, experimented in recent years with introducing narratives and conversations, and some probably more atypical to ballet and that classical form, but that's my first language than some of the other art forms. So I think using the Choreographic Institute to give voices to many, many choreographers and creators will be another way that I will start to work with the wonderful team of people who are here to diversify this program.
I think that's wonderful. And I just love the through line of listening before speaking, and that being a mark of a true great leader. And I just love that. And that just builds the empathy and understanding because you're listening and then acting, but still having your ideas. I love that. And so with your works that you've already done, can you tell us about some highlights of works that you've done that have just shown the diversity and inclusion that you're hoping to implement?
Yeah, certainly. I think the one that immediately springs to mind is a piece entitled Chalk Lines, which was created and performed in 2016. My co-choreographer's name was Dr. Kamal Nance. He is currently a professor at the University of Illinois. He has his own dance company as well. His discipline is Mfundala. He is an incredible thinker and professor, and we found ourselves in a space together with these seemingly disparate art forms, and that drew us to one another, and we wanted to see how we could create a work that honored and celebrated the like and disparate things about our art forms, and how we could do that and to also speak to current issues, things that really matter to us. So that process was incredible because it really started with conversations. We would sit in the room and talk about what we heard on the news. And what really sparked Chalk Lines, which is a piece about the proliferation of violence against African-American men in particular. What chalked the impetus for the choreography and the theme behind it was we had just heard about the Baltimore protests and the mother, I think her name was Toya Graham, who became a shero because she slapped her son who was at the protests. And for mothers like myself, I instantly knew and understood what that slap was about. This was not violence or anger. This was love and this was concern. She sees her child in a compromised position that she did not know that he had placed himself in. And for me, and I don't want to speak for her, but her actions speaks to what we as women of color with Black boys feel every day, or could feel every day, that he leaves that house, he may not come back just because of the color of his skin. So that slap was all of that, those emotions that we suppress every day, and we refuse to let take over our lives, let it be the thing that kills us with 1,000 little cuts, and stops us from enjoying the things that we can enjoy and controlling the things that we can control. So that particular piece, also choosing to choreograph it and be in it, was really significant. And we used, at that point, it was at the University of Illinois. We used students in the dance department, but we also used students across the campus. And we used students from the middle school there, young boys who, sadly, some were the exact age of some of the victims who had been shot and killed by the police. So it was very intense, but at the same time, the music was heat wave, groove line, and it showed that other side of the human spirit of how you find a way to persevere and find joy in spite of the challenges and the pain. So that piece, and I think in particular, resonates and stays with me. Other pieces I've done, there was a project called the Counterpoint Project, which was an evening length work, and it really was about celebrating the Black femme and her natural beauty. It was a collaboration with an incredible artist by the name of Patrick Hammy. He's a classic artist who does large portraitures. And part of the project was a performance, but also he painted pictures of each one of the 5 dancers. And I was one of those dancers. And it was done in our natural beauty, not a stitch of makeup or anything, which is a very obviously exposing and vulnerable thing. But what I found was that it was a liberating thing, to own who you are at any stage of your life. And at that point, I was in my 50s, so I was the one who was not just dealing with myself as an artist, but dealing with myself as a seasoned artist. So how and where ageism has a place in dance and the art form. And it has a wonderful place, because what you may lose in physical prowess, you gain so much in maturity and understanding and comfort and ease with what and who you are.
I'd love to
Those are
know.
just 2.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'd love to know, with those pieces, with your rehearsal process, did you speak with your dancers and explain the emotions that you were trying to portray, or did you let your dancers interpret the movement for themselves in their performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was kind of a mixture of both. But mainly what ended up happening was just letting the space be open to who and what they are, and their own journeys. So each piece really ended up being informed by what they had experienced on an individual level. I mean, collectively, we were all Black women who were in an art form that hasn't always welcomed us or seemed to open up the doors for us. And some of us had the more typical ballet body, some of us less so. So there were those individual challenges. But there were even more personal things. For example, Chira Robinson, who is a ballerina with Ballet Black in London, I believe. I hope I'm saying that correct. Ballet Black. I don't want to say the wrong one because there's a company in Dallas, but she is with a predominantly people of color company in London. And she talks about how she, for many, many years, was the only African American in that company, but also she's a stunningly beautiful, very brown girl. And so she talked about the isolation of that within this company, and the expectation of her, of the responsibility of being the mentor to those kids who look like her, and how that was both empowering and isolating at the same time.
That's awesome. And yeah, and so with the isolation, and I can't even imagine like the struggles of isolation that some artists feel. And are there any times in your career that you felt specifically isolated?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think early on in my career as a student, I I experienced some wonderful allyships from people of all colors. My teachers were incredibly kind and generous and worked with me and pushed me. But there were students who would not sit next to me in the dressing room. I remember one day very specifically after class going in to get dressed and going to put my street shoes on. And somehow in that particular day, I checked my shoes and there was chocolate smeared all inside. And there were a group of girls in the corner just looking and laughing. And that was probably one of the hardest moments, because when you're young and you are just doing something that you enjoy doing and haven't had all of the information of race and the systemic nature of it, to kind of warn you about these type of things, I just felt so, I felt confused and frustrated, and I felt like there must be something wrong with me that would make anyone want to do something like that. But thankfully, um, age and wisdom and mentorship, parents who talk to you and start to give you a sense of self, who help you to realize that everything that you are is enough, and that you can only give the gift that you have. How that's received is on someone else. Um, but how you present yourself becomes the thing that you can control. And for me, that has led me through a lot of instances where I felt isolated. I found ways um, to claim my space, be proud of who I was, turn what may have been perceived as deficits into assets, and push through. And in saying it, it sounds like, oh, it's easy breezy. Never easy breezy, just necessary.
Yeah, I love that sentiment that, how you present yourself is what you can control. And with that being said, do you have any advice for artists who um, can gain, like how they can gain empathy for people of differing backgrounds in their communities and in their studios and companies and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think this is the challenging part, because to that end, um, it is it is all of our responsibility, for empathy to lead in spaces. And many times it falls on the people who are the victims of a lack of empathy. But that becomes exhausting. That becomes extra labor. We can't continue to teach things that people should already know, and that they can learn in other ways. Some of that effort has to come from them, and if they have a desire to do so. Now, we certainly have to meet one another in the middle, and we have to go through things together. Um, but there are enough um, opportunities to really learn and get to know people, which I do think is at the core of empathy, really learning and understanding people, and then discovering that we're so much more alike than we're unalike. But if you don't know someone or ever get the opportunity to kind of witness and see where joy comes from, what where sadness comes from. We all have these emotions, and usually they are coming from the same things. We all love. We all value our culture and who we are. And the more we can value that and leave space for others to have that same value without feeling a sense of threat or erasure, I think that's where empathy comes in.
And do you have any specific ideas in UNCSA and in the world of how you can encourage that kind of empathy from allies and just everyone in the community?
Yeah, keep making space for diversity. Um, I I say that we have to understand and know the past. We have to value the past. We have to value history. We have to value tradition, but we can't be stuck in it. We have to leave space for ways to innovate, open up our hearts, open up our minds, open up the art form to new narratives, to new collaborations, and that could be in any number of ways. Sometimes it is in the content of what works are about, and sometimes it's just in the people who are in the room. So take a chance on new choreographers, take a chance on unlikely couplings. We have to be bold. I think being bold and being generous is the way for innovation and for empathy. Because until we start to learn about one another, we won't have that in our hearts. You can't be empathetic without understanding.
Right. And I
And I
think
know, oh, go ahead, Caroline.
oh, sorry. I just think that's such a beautiful point to make too, that we talk a lot about on the podcast with our listeners who might not be dancers or movers. I think that some people automatically assume that because dance is an art form and we are very inclusive and we try and welcome everyone, that those things don't happen anymore, that we've completely moved past them. And while I think we have made great strides to try and move past them, unfortunately things like that still happen. And I think the idea of just welcoming everything in terms of choreography and people and new ideas, that is like the most beautiful way to try and spark that change that might actually stick, that we shouldn't be stuck in our past but always looking forward to new things.
You're so right. Yeah. So there has been progress, there has been growth, but we're still siloed in lots of ways, and there are things that certainly need opening up and risk taking. But I think, like it's been said, the reward is worth the risk. I think that dance will be greatly enriched by this opening up and this welcoming and this liberalness that we are known for. But I think we can really start to match the meaning of that word if we, make space for people's perspectives and their lenses.
Being a School of the Arts alum, I know that there was a big conversation about bringing in more people of diversity. Are there people that you were able to bring in this year, or have ideas of in the future that you're going to be able to bring into the dance program at School of the Arts?
Yes, I mean, and I do want to give kudos to the administration here, our Chancellor Cole and Provost Sims, and the School of Dance and the interim dean, Jared Reddick. They had started making inroads in this direction. And so the choreographers and the guest artists who were a part of this year were, I think, very, very deliberately chosen. And in saying that, there's not one level of excellence that was diminished. And I think that that's important to realize, that in choosing diversity, you're not somehow lessening the experience or the expertise. You're just expanding it out to include more voices. So that has already started. I will be bringing in a couple of guest artists in a few spaces. This year has already been set, but Darrell Miltree, who is a choreographer, a dear friend, a former performer, who is so richly diverse in his his choreography, he has worked with classical ballet companies, contemporary companies, and as well as Beyonce. So, he brings this, he epitomizes a diverse mover and a diverse choreographer. Also, there are other choreographers who are coming in. Women need more of a voice as the creators of work, particularly in ballet. So there will be female choreographers who are coming in. Or yeah, we're diversifying, and we will continue to do so. I have a huge initiative that I'm excited about for the coming year that I can't 100% share with you, but it will be something that will really open up what and who should be celebrating and represented during the holiday season. Let's just say that.
Oh, that's very exciting.
I'd love to know, Dean Taylor, if you have any advice for artists who are feeling isolated, whether it be their race, religion, background, gender, what advice you would have for them to encourage them to keep going and to not give up on their dreams?
Yeah, for me, when things got kind of the darkest or the most challenging in my career, and I reached the point of having to decide if I wanted to continue on or not, I had to decide if the art form was bringing me more joy than turmoil, if it felt more toxic than a place where I found happiness and challenge. And once I decided that I still loved doing it, what I removed was the pressure of pleasing someone, looking to be accepted. And I poured into just being the best version of me that I could be within the art form. And things really turned around. Choreographers started picking me for their works, and even almost a weight of that pressure lent itself to even a change in my body, how it performed, and how healthy and how fit and strong I felt mentally and physically. So if you can find that, it helped me. I can say that. And there are also ways to feed your soul and others. There are people in communities, and I think one thing we've really found out with COVID and the accessibility of the arts on social media and through other channels, people soak it in. So go perform for seniors. Find opportunities to share your gift with people who will, I guarantee you, appreciate it and make you feel valued. Have 4 plan A's is what I say. Don't think of your plan B as a B, because that seems like it's something that is a fallback. Have 4 plan A's. And this plan A, okay, let's go to the next one. So you never feel like you are not succeeding, because everything that you're doing is a learning process. It's giving you some valuable information.
That's the greatest advice I think you could have ever given. I don't know who would want to give up after that.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for that. So what point in your career were you at, like, one of the most defining shifting points, like you were saying, that breaking point of, is this bringing too much destruction in my life, or am I able to kind of flip this around and find joy again? Where were you at that point?
Yeah, so I was at dance theater, and I had been there a couple of years, and I was going through a lot of things, just as a teenage girl would. My body suddenly started to change, and I took on curves, and so body image became a thing. I was seeing dancers who were lighter than me getting certain roles, having opportunities, and it felt more like I was stuck and not moving forward and not getting the opportunities to dance and do what I felt in my heart I could do. And when you're pushing and giving your all and it doesn't seem like things are coming, and you feel like you're being noticed but still not being, I don't want to say rewarded, but given the opportunity, I think that was that moment for me. Am I just beating my head against the wall? Why am I doing this if I'm not ever getting the opportunity to perform? And that's why I recommend finding ways to perform, finding that audience that's going to be deliciously low-hanging fruit, that they are going to give you a standing ovation just for showing up. In many ways, you have no idea what that is doing for them, but it's also feeding you as well. So that was kind of that tough part, wanting to dance, wanting to perform, wanting to be accepted, and yeah, just it not happening when it felt like it should.
I'd love to hear a little bit about some mentors that you had throughout your career that gave you the inspiration and that gall to keep going.
Yeah, well, cheesy as it sounds, my parents were incredible mentors. They were incredibly creative in even being able to provide access to the art form of ballet in particular. It's very expensive. And we were a lower middle class family at best. And I had 3 siblings who they were also providing for. But somehow they managed to send me to summer intensives. I managed to have my uniforms and my attire. There were times when, my point shoes were so soft that I could barely stand on them because, the check hadn't come in yet, but they found ways to, you know, to keep me in and allow me to do what I ultimately end up having as my life's career. Uh, so being resilient is something that I learned from them. Arthur Mitchell, an incredible mentor again, because he taught me to think of myself in a multiplistic way. I think he really instilled in us the sense of being artists, but representing something larger than yourself. So being spokespeople, being ambassadors, being entrepreneurs, being educators, being able to not just be about the art form, but be able to speak about the art form. And I've learned since in seeking funding for my own projects, being able to write and speak about what it is you want to do is critical, you know? So yes, dance is a language, we speak with our bodies, but in order to have the opportunity to do that, sometimes you have to be able to articulate what it is you want to do and why what you want to do should be supported. I have mentors now. There is a professor, her name is Ollie Watts Davis. She is a professor of music at the University of Illinois. And she is someone who mentors in everything she does, because the moment you walk into her classroom, she's teaching. And from the moment you leave, she's still teaching. So to be a constant learner is something that I have really embraced from her.
And what are some ways at School of the Arts and Beyond that I'm being a dean, I know that it's hard for students to approach deans because it's like, whoa, they're the dean of the school. And it's a big deal and it's a lot of responsibility. How do you plan to kind of make yourself accessible to students in a way that you feel like is appropriate for your position?
Yeah, well, we've had our orientations and those conversations, and I've already verbalized several times I will be walking around. I intend to be a very present dean. And that's for them, but it's equally for me. I want to feel the energy of students learning and growing towards this industry and this profession. I want to see how they are interacting with their teachers. I want them to see my face um, more than just behind a desk, so that they see me as a person, as a fellow artist, in addition to being the dean. So my door is always open as well. And I want them to know that they can knock and walk on through and we can have a conversation. You know, if my door is closed, then I'm obviously working or doing something like now, but I am communicating in every way that I can that I am here and I'm not someone just to come see if there's a concern.
Well, Dean Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a beautiful conversation. I've just so enjoyed getting to speak with you, and I've just soaked in every little bit of everything you've said. I'd love it if you could tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you, and if you have anything that you'd like to share, any upcoming projects at UNCSA. Yeah, have at it.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure being here as well. Thank you all so much for inviting me. Um, I am kind of shamelessly not a big social media person, but you can email me at taylore@uncsa.edu. Um, as far as up and coming projects, we have two choreographers who are in right now, guest choreographers, um, who are working for our fall dance, which will be happening at the end of September. Madison, I see you shaking your head. And so that performance will be, I think there are 6 performances, and it should be wonderful. We also have an alum of the program who is currently on faculty here, Ashley Lindsay. He will be the 3rd choreographer creating work for that fall dance. So yes, please come on out.
Oh,
Email.
I can tell you, it's fall dance is incredible. So always, and I know it will be so good this year. And that's in person, correct?
That's right. It is
Oh,
in person,
wonderful.
masked, but in person.
Yay,
Mhm.
live theater again.
I know, I
Thank
know.
goodness. Well, Dean
Mhm.
Taylor, thank you so much again for joining us. And it was so great to meet you. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Same
Thank
here. Pleasure. Thank you.
Of
thank
course.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Just feel so enriched after that conversation and like re listening to that conversation. She had so many incredible words of wisdom about diversity and inclusion and how we can actively take steps to, show empathy towards others and include others in our arts community and our dance community specifically. I really loved how she talked about um, her choreographic process and including her dancers in that and making sure that everybody's story was told honestly. What did you think about that when she said that?
I mean, understanding people's perspectives, no matter what stage of life they're in, that can only increase your artistry and increase collaboration, which will create way more possibilities than you could ever imagine just with yourself. Because I know she has like worked with very young students and older dancers, and the wealth of knowledge that you get from collaborating with different people with different walks of life is just invaluable.
It's so true. And I feel so confident in the future of dancers and professionals in our industry with someone like Dean Taylor at the head of a higher education organization that can only cultivate, greatness and professional and inclusive people coming out of that program. So I feel so blessed that we were able to have that conversation with her. And I hope everybody was really able to soak it in and come away feeling a little bit kinder and more understanding, and hopefully that you're going to reach out to somebody with a kind heart. Well, everyone, that's all we have for today. As always, keep moving, stay curious, and stay confident. Bye, y'all.
Bye.